Hey everybody, it's Suzanne, and I wanted to take you on a quick tour of my garden. Specifically today, I'm going to show you the perennial edible plants that I have. I hope you like it.
You need to say me this time.
This is my garden helper Nova. This is my asparagus bed, and asparagus is not supposed to grow well on the Gulf Coast. However, I had such good luck with the few plants that I bought a couple years ago that I went ahead and bought some seeds, and I started 20 more plants from seeds. So hopefully I will have enough asparagus next year to make several dinners, or several side dishes for several dinners. This year I was able to make one side dish with what I picked from the asparagus, and plus when I come out to the garden I snap off whatever is available and I eat it without sharing with anybody. So hopefully next year I'll be more generous. With asparagus, it's important that you prepare the bed really deep and that you add a lot of compost. It's also important that you keep it well weeded. Another thing to consider about asparagus is if you buy roots, it's going to take about 3 years for those roots to get established before you can start picking the asparagus. When you do begin to pick asparagus, you want to keep in mind that you should only pick it until it starts to become thin. When it is about as thin, when the new shoots are about as thin as a pencil, that's when you want to stop harvesting the asparagus. And this is because you're harvesting a portion of the plant that makes food for the plant and helps the root get established and grow larger. So if you continue to harvest every shoot, then you're not going to have any asparagus the following year. So you have to be very patient with asparagus. And that asparagus is actually much thicker than a pencil. I probably could have eaten it or harvested those 2 shoots, but I chose not to. Again, I'm being patient and holding out for next year and hoping that I will really have an awesome asparagus harvest next year. So I've just planted them all around my greenhouse, and perennials need a lot of water the first couple years. So by doing this, I'm getting the rainfall that comes off of the top of the greenhouse rolls down, and you would really be amazed at how much rain the roof of your house or the roof of a greenhouse can catch. And so all of that kind of comes down and focuses right here on my asparagus bed, and they benefit greatly from this. You might find it hard to believe, but there is a perennial edible here, and it is, or the perennial edibles here are strawberries, and this patch is in desperate need of a weeding. It was on my to-do list this past weekend, and it just did not get done, so I'll definitely be doing that this weekend. But I'll go ahead and give you a close-up of some of the developing berries on the strawberry plant. There's a flower and 2 green maturing fruits. There's a little bitty strawberry. I've already went through and eaten the larger ones before I took the video. I wasn't thinking clearly. I apologize. And this strawberry bed goes all the way down, and then I have blueberry bushes, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 well-established blueberry bushes, and then I have some smaller blueberry bushes that have never really done anything, but I didn't have the heart to tear them out, so they just kind of hang out in the garden. They'll get leaves on them, but they don't really do anything. My garden helper is back to help me out, and I'm going to see really quick if I can find a wild edible that I did not plant. I don't see any back here. I weed eated earlier, so I'm going to have to look in the front yard. For what I was just talking about, which is a surprise. I'll tell you in a minute. This right here was a lemon tree, and the top died off. The grafted root portion has grown out. It doesn't make lemons, but the leaves are really, really good for Thai dishes. They work well in place of lime leaves. You still get that really wonderful citrusy aroma. And you just use citrus tree leaves like you do a bay leaf. You toss it in. You may want to kind of macerate it or crush it up a little bit with your fingernail or your thumb to kind of release some of those essential oils, and you want to throw it in your pan, a couple of those per curry recipe, and then at the end you pull those out. You would not want to eat those. But that's a nice perennial to have. A couple more of my blueberry bushes. This is a raspberry plant. Raspberry plants aren't supposed to grow down here. I bought two. One perished. The other one is thriving. There are several blooms on it. This is only its second year, and when something's not supposed to do well down here, I don't really have high hopes for it. I'll plant it just for kicks to see what happens. So let me show you the rest of my perennials. Back here, those are Ichium figs. I also have a kiwi plant. That's what's growing against the fence. I've never gotten kiwis from it, but you can always hope. This is my monster rosemary bush. I can never eat enough rosemary off of this. Anytime someone comes over, they're welcome to it. It smells wonderful when you brush up against it, and it's a really nice perennial, really easy, carefree perennial to have in the garden. I will say that the first two times I planted rosemary, I got the little plants from Lowe's, and the plants actually died. One of them, I think it dried up and died. I probably didn't water it enough. The other one I had under a shade tree in a pot, and I got up one morning to water it, and it disappeared. The pot was there, but there was no rosemary plant. So the third time was a charm, and as you can see, it's really thriving. And this rosemary bush is probably 4 years old, I would say, maybe 5, and I really love it. It's great. One of the plants that makes me really happy in my garden. Well, I also have some mint, and this mint is chocolate mint, and I know people are probably going to tell me that I should have put it in a pot, but it would be my best dream come true if my entire lawn was covered with mint. So chocolate, this one's chocolate mint. That would actually not be, I could think of worse things that could happen. This over here is traditional peppermint. It has a slightly different growth habit. I don't know if you'll be able to hear me over the air conditioning unit, but this is a pomegranate tree, and I grew this from seed from a grocery store pomegranate. The tree's, I think, 3 years old now, and we are seeing our first blooms this year. They're really pretty, and I hope maybe next year the whole tree will be covered in them. Well, I'm calling it a tree, obviously it's a shrub. It's a really, really gorgeous flower, and I'll be even happier if we get edible pomegranates off of it. That would be just really exceptional. I have another pomegranate tree by my rain barrels. This one's not doing as well. I also grew that from a grocery store seed. I've got another Ichium fig. These are bananas that I've put in pots, and these are actual real bananas. Can't tell you which is which because I lost the labels, but one is the same variety that commercial banana growers use. It's probably the large one that's doing really well in the back. The other two, one of those is a dwarf Cavendish, and the other one is an ice cream banana. And what the plan with these, I got these as, I guess you would call them corms, last year in the mail, and I planted them, and then I sort of neglected them, and they did freeze, but they popped back. This year I plan to put the banana trees in the greenhouse before they freeze, and a banana tree needs to be 2 years old, needs to go through 2 years of its life without ever seeing a frost to successfully ripen a bunch of bananas. We'll make bananas before it's 2 years old, but in order for them to get ripe, it has to be a little longer. This is where my large fig trees are, and these fig trees make more than enough figs for my family. We still have some in the freezer from last year, and I still have a couple cans of preserves, so I really need to start eating those and preparing for this year's harvest. But these are 2 fig trees. These trees are 7 years old. They're as old as this house. I planted them. This is one of the first things I planted out here. These are some of my other favorite plants besides the rosemary plant. And these are really carefree, and I've noticed, at least in my area, that the figs that seem to do best are the ones that are planted right next to the house. I think that's probably due to the microclimate that's created by a home. My home is brick, so during the day it's going to absorb the solar energy, heat, and at night it's going to release that into the surrounding air. And as you can see, there's another house pretty close, so that also provides some warmth during the winter time. These trees do go dormant. They drop all their leaves, but they pop right back to life. And this is a variety called a blackjack fig, and it does not grow as large as the brown turkey fig that's more common. I still occasionally have to take out a main branch that's too tall for me to cover. A really important thing about figs, at least in my area, is that if you only have a couple trees, you definitely want to cover them with bird netting. And it doesn't have to be wrapped tight around the base. As you can see, these spread way out. So I just throw it over the top, and that will deter the birds enough that, you know, I'm able to actually harvest my figs. Otherwise, the birds, I don't mind sharing if they would eat one fig and leave the rest alone, but they like to peck small holes about the size of your pinky fingernail in every single fig that they find on the tree, and then leave the rest to rot. And I don't like to be wasteful, so I pick what I want. When I get tired of eating them at the end of the season and there's still some on the plant, then the birds can have their fill. This is another perennial that is technically on my property. However, we've excluded the trunks by a privacy fence. This is a pecan tree, and right now you'll notice the brown portions on the tree. In some cases they're still green. This pecan tree is flowering, and it's getting ready to make pecans. These are really young pecan trees. They're probably only about 20 years old, and I forget how old a pecan tree has to be to make a significant crop, but I want to say off the top of my head that it's 60. This is an apple tree. It always blooms really well. It's supposed to be a golden delicious, but last year the apples that it made, even though I thinned them out, they were really small. So I think this may be a case where at some point at the nursery, before it made its way to my favorite big box store, maybe the top grafted portion died, and this is the root portion that grew up, was able to reestablish itself in the absence of the top grafted portion. So may not actually be golden delicious anymore, but M1867 or whatever the name of that rootstock is that they commonly use. This is an apple tree called Ian Shimmer, and I believe it was bred in Israel. It's supposed to be heat tolerant, and you'll notice that I have the bottoms of my trees painted white. That's because out here in the front yard they get a lot of exposure from the sun in the afternoon, and they actually were starting to get blisters on their southwestern portion of their trunk. This is a peach tree, and it's in bloom, and it'll start to put buds out before the foliage has come completely out. So there's some blooms on it. There's also some foliage at the tips right there. And then there are the blooms. There's another little fig over there. That's a native tree. I think it's Juniperus virginiana. And while the tree itself isn't edible, you can use the berries to make gin, which I've never tried. That would be an interesting experiment. It's a little peach tree that has never done real well. Been nursing it along. I'll probably, it made a couple peaches last year. I thinned it way down and just let it make 2. And the peaches were hard and nasty. So, if you don't earn your keep around here, you get the boot. That's my motto. Over here, I have a blueberry house. Blueberry. Here, I have a bluebird house. And the habitat that they prefer is at the edge of an open field, which is what we are here. And get a couple batches of baby bluebirds out of this every year. This is oregano. I have several patches of chives. This is a daylily, and daylily roots are actually edible, although I don't eat them. I've never tried them. Echinacea. I started these from seeds, and I mean, they really grow crazy. They grow like weeds. They'll propagate. This bed has been redone, or you would see around this clump, you would see just, you know, anywhere between 20 and 100 volunteer seedlings. What I have here is rattlesnake root, also known as Florida bentonweed, and it is in the mint family, and this is actually a native plant that has been a nuisance in my garden that I later found out is edible. And it's really good fresh. It tastes like a water chestnut, has a similar sort of texture. Very crisp and refreshing. It's flowering right now. So this is actually what it looks like when it's flowering, and that's a little purple flower. They had an article that mentioned this plant as an edible perennial in the most recent issue of Mother Earth News, so you may want to check it out there. In that issue they call it crowsneys. They also call it, I think, Chinese artichoke. And the genus is Stakes. And you could tell it's in the mint family. The leaves look like a mint, but the easiest way to tell things are in the Lamiaceae family is to feel the stem. And you can't see that on this video, but the stem is actually a square. It's not round, it's square. So that's kind of a neat, useful thing to know. And just in case you didn't believe me that they're edible,